Thanks very much, Kate, and welcome everybody. Good afternoon from Ottawa to all of you. I don't know what it's like in your part of the country, but this morning we were delighted to see that we had a snowstorm just when we're all thinking about Mother's Day and Mayflower. So Mother Nature reminds us who's in charge. Families Canada launched the Let's Talk discussion forum in direct response to the COVID pandemic, as many of you would know. And our intent is to give the family support sector the opportunity to connect, to share some of your concerns, and of course, importantly, to learn from each other. And today's topic is something I think that's top of mind for family support practitioners who are out there trying really hard to support all types of families who are struggling with all types of issues. Lyne Charlebois is the Executive Director of the West Island Association for the Intellectually Handicapped, or WIAIH is their acronym. I hope I'm pronouncing the acronym correctly, Lyne. Lyne began with a financial career at Laurentian Bank, where she was for 8 years before devoting herself to educating her two sons, both of whom were born with Tourette's syndrome. Lyne enrolled her youngest son in WIAIH's Pat Roberts Development Center, where she became first a volunteer and then an assistant, and then for 9 years was the manager of this specialized center in outside Montreal. And then in September 2017, Lyne was promoted to executive director, and today she oversees all of WIAIH's activities and its 95 employees. So it's quite a big operation, and Zindu and I have had the pleasure of visiting, and it really is quite a large operation. Lyne, by the way, is also a very active and much appreciated member of the Board of Directors of Families Canada. And as you might imagine, she brings a very important perspective to the table around supporting families who have a member who is living with a disability. And she has as well executive experience, and for Families Canada, that means advice around what it takes to run a large organization. So with that, Lyne, over to you.
Thank you, Kelly, for that lovely introduction. It's my pleasure to be here with you today. As Kelly said, also here in southern Quebec, we've had a bit of a blizzard this morning. It is pretty cold, but rainbows are shining in every home as we try to trudge our way through this pandemic. And we're looking ahead to the weeks coming as slowly deconfinement is starting to happen here in the province, although not in the Montreal area just yet. When Kelly approached me asking to provide some insight as to how we are adapting our services to the current pandemic, I thought this was a wonderful opportunity for our organization to share our experiences, and I think to normalize things a little bit, because you'll see that it's not that different from what we can offer as support during the whole year. Of course, the big change for these families right now is having to juggle workload, working from home, and their special needs child. When I speak about child here, I'm talking toddlers, babies, elementary school, teenagers, young adults, older adults. We even offer services to seniors who live in residential services. So I'm always referring to the individual with special needs when I'm speaking about children. It has been quite an exercise for us to change dramatically our way of delivering services from, the personal touch to a virtual world, although we have found some interesting ways to do so, and the response has been pretty good. So far, anyway, we get a lot of positive reactions, but I think respecting each family's needs and what they are able to function with is really important. As a general rule, our organization offers services from birth to seniors, going from infant stimulation and preschool programs for young children, recreation services throughout the year, including summer camps, which are a big topic of conversation right now, information sessions for families, respite. We also operate a home for 9 adults with disabilities. So the range of services we offer is pretty broad, and some of these are easier to adapt than others. So if I can maybe just talk about, when the announcement came that all services, schools, daycares were closing, that had an immediate impact on all our services, as well as our biggest department, recreation, which offers services to 375 individuals, where access to community space was now limited or just not there anymore. Aquatic activities, for example, the pools were closed. We have a cooking class at a local grocery store that wasn't accessible anymore. So we had to be creative and come up with some ideas. So our first step was really to reach out to families. Each department had staff mobilized to contact the individual families by phone, try to take a little inventory just in passing in conversation, see how they were doing, were they coping well with the break in routine. And we were pleasantly surprised to see that most families were taking this in stride and just loosening up a little bit their expectations with regards to their child and making the best of it. So they were seeing it more or less as an impromptu vacation. From that point on, as a team, we mobilized to see how could we continue providing support. So the friendly phone calls have continued, but we've also expanded our reach to offer Zoom contacts. So where the phone calls are more targeted to the parents or the caregivers, the Zoom activities have been a vehicle for us to reach directly the participants. Then again, for the youngest ones, the children that attend our daycare integration program or our preschool, the focus remains the parent, but providing the parents with activities and different ideas to occupy and stimulate the child. The one focus for us was really to respect the family's willingness to have these calls set up, these video calls set up for their child, anticipating rising anxiety that could happen there. Some families chose not to go that route, where their child being able to see their animator on screen but not being able to physically be there with them may cause more damage than good. So we looked at recording little individualized videos for some of these participants where the families could just play that in the loop when they were missing their animators but not able to be in touch with them. Let me just have a look at my notes. One of our most popular activities throughout the year is our support group for parents called Coffee Break. So we've used Zoom again to offer coffee break to parents and increase the availability of this from a once a month to every 2 weeks. So we could have small groups and allow everyone a chance to express themselves, but then have a rotation and give more parents a chance to participate. So in general, we've had 5 to 8 parents participate every 2 weeks. These have been going on now for practically 2 months, and they remain tremendously popular. Parents are exchanging tips, they're supporting each other. They'll often follow up with personal calls. A lot of them have been attending these support groups for a long time, so they are keeping in touch together outside of our own activities. And we've also increased the frequency of our newsletter and changed the format a little bit. So we're informing parents of the activities or any decisions to close for extended periods certain programs. For example, our recreation session ends at the end of May. So when we've made the decision that it was not really foreseeable to continue this session, let's start focusing on the next one. The information was shared with the families. It also gave us a chance to provide all our members with a variety of activities, going from recipes, planting sunflowers as a family. This week's edition was focused around Mother's Day and suggestions from the preschool educators as how dads and children could make mommies feel special on Mother's Day, as simple as pouring a hot bath with bubbles as a treat for mom. We've made a point when we're checking in with families to get a sense of whether or not they're running low on food, have they lost their income. Without asking direct questions, it's pretty easy to get them to talk about what they're going through right now. And we can kind of assess, are they really needing certain items that we can help facilitate or provide? So when we're calling, we always have a list of phone numbers and resources at our fingertips that we can use to refer them quickly. And in some cases, if we see that the distress is so great that they can't even mobilize themselves to make the phone call, we'll actually just go ahead and do it for them. Through our MPs and MNAs here in Quebec, we were offered food baskets for families who were struggling. So we've been able to facilitate those as well for some families, or even just provide them with materials. So either lend them some of our equipment or just flat out go out and purchase it and send it to them. For example, one child that I've known very well in the years I was working at the preschool, when I contacted his mom, he was starting to get a little stir crazy. And I know that this is a child that needs a lot of physical activity, a lot of vestibular and sensory stimulation. So because of a generous donor to our organization, I was able to order a little mini trampoline and have it delivered to his house. So we're trying to see how we can help families cope, providing them with activity packs as well. So one service have been putting together coloring pages. If they know one participant enjoys dinosaurs, they gather information, make a little activity pack, maybe pack up a few toys to lend for a week, and they'll go and deliver it to their house. So these are all ways we've been helping. We've also been encouraging parents not to push agendas, therapeutic agendas. Right now, I think everyone is in survival mode. So, kind of loosening up on objectives in the big scheme of things is not going to impact development that severely. I think that the extra anxiety and pressure of trying to accomplish those for parents right now who are trying to homeschool and do everything else is probably more harmful than stopping to push toilet training or pressuring for children to communicate using pictograms or such items right now. One of the things that as a parent of special needs children myself, I've come to realize is my oldest son is finishing high school this year, and his teacher called one day and I realized how much as parents of these children, our circle of cheerleaders, if you want, quickly become the professionals that we work with on the daily. And this is a period where these people are not very present in our lives. So they're not present in our children's life. They're not providing them the routine and the structure that they know and need. But they're also, friends in the sense, or people we rely on who have disappeared somewhat from our network. So I really urge you and encourage you to call and check on the families. Just, as a courtesy, say, hello, how are you doing? Just wanted to check on you. Is this a good time? If not, make an appointment, try again, don't give up. But keep in mind that they are probably overwhelmed, trying to juggle a bunch of things, and they will likely not pick up the phone and call you themselves. But they will tremendously appreciate that you do. So this is really an opportunity, I feel, for so many of us who work with families to strengthen the bonds we have with them, continue the little conversations. If chat messages work with you guys, if that's something that's allowed, it's a quick way to just check in on someone, just say hello, how are you doing? I hope you're well. If you need anything, let me know. And we've been able to get a good sense of many, many families throughout this time. For families who really struggle and need respite, here in our area, in the province of Quebec, the government has set measures in place. So it's very important for us to know what is being offered at the provincial level and continue sharing that information with the families. So when you have an idea of what the needs are, you can hook them up quickly. Rather than compose long emails, it's just, you know, transferring one to a specific family or calling them up and saying, listen, can I help facilitate this for you? We've been rather fortunate, I think, in the sense that none of our families right now are at breaking point, or at least they're not, they're not that desperate just yet where they cannot find a solution. Many families have been reluctant to use respite services where someone comes to their house because of the risk of transmission, as well as going out to centers to receive respite for the same reasons. We do feel though that, you know, the longer the confinement lasts, the greater the risk is becoming, and we're monitoring that very closely. As part of our role to advocate for these families, we're involved in many different conversations to make sure that when the time is good to offer securely all these services, that will be ready for them. Let's see, any other things that I meant to tell you about? I think, you know, consistency, just continue to be there, making sure that we're following up with them on a regular basis is really important because the situation can change so quickly. A few sleepless nights, if you have a child with autism, can quickly send you down the spiral of despair, especially if there's other children at home or if the behaviors are difficult to manage. So making sure that there's someone to talk to. Often you don't need to provide the solution, but just be there to listen and help them work towards finding a solution for themselves. You know, I'm so against coming in a prescriptive mode and telling people what to do. I'd much rather accompany them to find their own answers and then check in on them after a few days and see if it's working or what else could be done. You know, the idea of laying a roadmap out for them, well, there's a few different options, but they've got to figure out which one works best. I think to me is always a guiding motto. And also not judge. Definitely, we all know how we feel about the use of screens, of television, of tablets as a babysitter, but at the moment, if this is what they need to do to be able to get in a few hours of work, you know, between having a roof over your head and food on the table or letting your child, you know, use the tablet, I think that, you know, we've got to be understanding here and realize that this is much bigger than just someone caving in to their child's whims. So we've been very supportive of families who, you know, will let their child sleep in so they can get an hour of work before the child gets up and so on. And really encourage them to find ways that help them best function. This is not normal times. They will eventually resolve and will adjust in time, but for the moment, just keeping the peace is probably the best strategy for many of these families. So I think that, you know, in a nutshell, these are some of the things we've been doing. I'll be happy to answer some questions or, you know, discuss with you different needs that you may have. Maybe there's things I haven't addressed that you'd like to talk about. So I will turn it back over to, I believe it's Kate, to manage the questions on the plenary.
Just unmute myself there, always forget about that. Thank you, Lynn. So before opening the plenary, a friendly reminder, please do use a headset if you have one. If you would like to speak, use the participant icon at the bottom of your screen to raise your hand. And you can also post any helpful links or comments in the chat box. So let's open the discussion. Oh. There you go, Kelly.
Okay, thanks. I had a few comments actually. I thought your last remark on screens was very apropos, Lynn. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, I wrote a blog on screen time, and basically I said just chill a little bit under all circumstances, and so. If you want a little bit of a very light reading on how to manage screen time, you can go onto our website and look under blogs, and you'll see one that's about screen time for all kids. I was interested in your coffee chats, because I think that's always such an interesting idea. Do you do this a few times a week where people can join in where they can, or do you have set groups, or how do you kind of manage that?
There you go, Lynn.
Oh, thank you. I was trying, wasn't working. So the parent support group is happening every second week. Normally when we have them in person, it's once a month. But the other Zoom chats that we've set up with the various participants take place at several different times a week. Parents will register their child, their teen or their young adult to participate. For example, we normally have a recreation activity that's called Friday Night Club, and it's basically a dance. So we've done something similar there, and they actually have a live Zoom dance party on Friday nights. So this has been one way to reach out to the families. It's also been, keep in mind that these teens and these young adults, even though they have special needs, they do have friendships and friends, and they miss them. They don't see them at school right now. They don't see them in their leisure activities. So this has been a wonderful way for them to connect. We have a group on Saturday mornings normally that's called Variety Pack, and Variety Pack is an arts and crafts group for 9 to 12-year-olds. And they've actually been crafting online. The animators will send a short list of materials to the family during the week, and Saturday morning they log in and they do the craft following their animators' steps and instructions. And we had a lovely screenshot a few weeks ago when they made bunnies for Easter of the kids holding up their crafts. So these have been really interesting. With some participants, it's actually individual calls. So some of our senior participants in our active action program, they will receive a call specifically from an animator to themselves at the set time. Or for those who live in residential settings, often a few of them who participate in our programs are living in the same home, so we'll be able to have a joint chat with them, so several of them get to see the animators that are normally taking care of them. So it's been really a fun way to discover a little bit the dynamics of their home life. Sometimes they have people living with them that are not enrolled in our program, so we're getting to know them as well, and perhaps recruit future users in our programs that way. But the Zoom, definitely the video calls have been a welcomed addition, and we can foresee continuing the parent support group this way. It's often difficult. We've tried doing support groups in the evening, and babysitting is often an issue. So this way, perhaps we'd be able to provide an alternative and restart something that often parents have voiced. Evening is a better time for me, but then when it's time to leave their home, their child is not going to sleep and they're having different battles around that. So we can see this becoming a staple for some of our programs for sure.
Yeah, it's really giving us the opportunity, I think, to experiment and perhaps to try some things that we wouldn't have considered trying before. We heard actually about a dance party for seniors, so on Zoom. So that's I think the dance party idea is really a fun one. And I was also interested in the telephone calls to people and the human contact, and how when you're really feeling a lot of stress and anxiety, in your case with your families, perhaps with the behavior or of children in that family, and that human contact can make such a difference of just, it's kind of like the reality check. And I would imagine that also gives you an indication as to what type of extra resources those families might need, so that when you're thinking about what can we provide, and then developing your list and your activity packs and that this is little clues when you talk to these folks about what you really need.
Absolutely. And it's been interesting that it goes both ways, in a sense that many families I've reached out to early in the pandemic and the confinement, in subsequent weeks have just shot me a quick little text message to say, like, I hope you're doing okay, because I know you're working hard, and just wanted to say hello, So it's been nice to see the reciprocity of it. But definitely most of them, they don't want to bother us, and they feel, like, well, I'll just keep on going. And when they get that call, and they're able, to vent or just to share. Sometimes it's sharing successes. If I'm looking at, feedback I got from the educators at the preschool, they sent out the Rainbow Challenge. Now, I don't know if rainbows are a thing across the country or just here in Quebec, but they've been our symbol through this crisis. And children, typical children in homes have been drawing rainbows on their driveway and their windows, hanging them out for people to see. And the preschool educators decided to launch a rainbow challenge to the children attending the preschool. And within a day, we had, a few of our participants, little girls with Down syndrome, sending back their rainbows. And it was lovely to see how creative the parents had been. So one mom helped her daughter, and they created a rainbow using star-shaped stickers and just, displayed them in the rainbow shape. Another mom actually pulled out Play-Doh in different colors, and they rolled little snakes and formed it into a rainbow, and then with a rolling pin rolled it flat. So parents came up with creative ways. So then we launched it to a bigger audience, and we even got some of our adult participants send us photos of their participation in the Rainbow Challenge. To the extent where a family I worked with in my years at the preschool is now living in the Czech Republic. They still follow us, even though they're not using our services. And the children over there made rainbows, and Dad called and sent me the photographs. And those were actually published in our newsletter, our website, our Facebook, not the website, our Facebook page, but they were also published in the magazine we have here in the West Island of Montreal called Inspirations, which is for the special needs community. So we got permission from the family out in the Czech Republic, who were, just calling. They still appreciate what we've done for them when they were here. So they call in and check several times a year on us. But through this time, really picked up the phone and called and said, we just want to know, we read about the crisis in Montreal, and we want to know that you're okay. So it was really lovely to have that opportunity. I think a lot of families they rely on this organization so much for a variety of issues. Just knowing that we're still active is very reassuring for them, even though we may need a little extra time to get back to them not being at the office. But just knowing that we're still there, getting the weekly newsletter, we've gotten lots of feedback about that, saying, you know, it's lovely just to hear your voices, even if it's in writing, and know that you're still working for our clientele and trying to make things better for us. So
that's so great, Lynn. Thank you so much. I think we have a question or comment from Zindu.
Yes, thanks, Lynn. Listening with great interest, and I think just following up on what you just said about, you know, the families who are writing in and keeping in touch with you. I was wondering because, you know, there are people that you develop a relationship with over time, and many of these families are people you've known for years and have been supporting. But before this whole situation struck, there must have been some new families that you were in the process of onboarding, maybe. Did you have to use different strategies to get those families connected or stay in touch?
Families that we've been in contact with recently who may not have started using our services yet, if we had any trace in terms of, you know, a phone number, an email address, there's been follow-up done for these families as well. And interestingly enough, through one family that we've worked with, we were you know, they approached us saying, you know, a colleague at work is concerned about their grandchild, and we're trying to reach out to a psychologist, but it seems like offices are closed. Is there any way we can help guide them a little bit? So I actually asked one of the educators at the preschool, this is a very young child, to get in touch with them. So we're still responding to these requests. What we're not doing currently is matching. You know, we'll take the request if someone is looking for a specialized babysitter, but we're not proceeding with matches at the moment because we cannot ensure security for both parties, really. So we're waiting on that. But whatever service we can deliver in terms of phone support, or, you know, setting up a Zoom call is easy enough. So we'll continue doing that for as long as it's needed.
Thank you.
Great. Anyone else? I think we have time for one more question or comment before we wrap up.
I just have one, sorry.
Yeah.
What are the top 2 or 3 things, Lynn, that you will take with you as you move the organization into the post-COVID environment, and we're all busy sort of tuning things up? What are your most important learnings or changes that you might make to how you do your business?
Oh, wow, that's a loaded question, Kelly. There is so much because our clientele tends to be one where we need to be so hands-on, and that are so sensitive to you know, their routine, the way we look, in a sense, not having how can I describe it? A lot of children will have sensitivities, tactile sensitivities, where anything that's touching them bothers them. And seeing us with a mask, even though the mask is on us, will be a problem. So definitely how we can deliver care in such a context. You know, we had a conversation this morning regarding summer camps and summer day programs. And if we need to be wearing gloves, wearing gowns, wearing masks, wearing visors, and reducing the ratio to 1-to-1 in a room, it's almost impossible for us to be able to deliver widespread services that way. So there's a lot of thought happening right now in terms of, how do we ensure the sanitary precautions are put in place. Not that there isn't normally, but these are above and beyond anything we've ever experienced. How do we teach them about social distancing? So there's been some social stories and some visual supports developed. But this is breaking habits that have been ingrained for so many years. I mean, the bulk of our clientele, the organization is almost 62 years old, and many of our members have been with us for 15, 20, 30, sometimes 40 years. So trying to change those patterns and those habits of, coming in and they want to give us a hug is going to be so difficult. So, the human aspect of it is definitely one that we're concerned about, and how will we be able to modify all that. It's going to be a lengthy experience for sure. In terms of, the rest of the organization, I think it's going to be a lot of rethinking what we do, how we do it, and is this the best way to provide support to the families. I think the video, the technological aspect will be much more present than it ever was. So this is going to change the way we do things a lot.
Great, thank you. And I'm just going to squeeze in one more question that we have from Paula. So Paula, you are unmuted and live on the air.
Hi, I just had a question. When you're doing the coffee time with the parents, are kids with them, or is it just strictly the adults? And
so on video, or when we're doing them at our center?
when you're doing them on video. Okay, you do them at the center and on video.
Well, normally the coffee break would be at our offices, and we have sitters that come in that are in a separate room.
Okay.
So the parents are free to talk, and the children are being cared for. Now that we're doing them on Zoom, the focus is the parents. I mean, if the children are popping in the same way, we've had staff calls where, their cats are climbing onto their laps. So of course, if it's the parent support group online and the child scrambles onto their parent's lap, we're happy to have them join. But obviously, this is not conversation that is necessarily of interest to them. But they've not been excluded either. We know that it's everyone's reality to be home with their family right now.
Right.
Thank you, Paula. Okay, thank you, everybody. That brings us to the end of today's discussion. So please do leave your comments in the chat box if you have any. And I will now turn it over to our Director of Operations, Zindu, to wrap up.
Thanks, Kate. And thanks once again, Lynn, for a really inspirational presentation. Lots of things to think about and a lot of challenges, which I'm sure that our listeners are thinking about as well. And there's no easy solution and no ready answer, because everybody is going through this for the first time. But it's been great to hear all the ways that you've been able to adapt and keep serving your families. So keep it up, and thank you so much for being on Let's Talk today. We are going to wrap up, but we'll have a recording of this session on our YouTube channel as usual, and feel free to share it with your colleagues and your network. As Kate mentioned, there's still time to leave some comments or questions in the chat box. We'll keep it open for a couple of minutes. So if you have any last-minute thoughts, feel free to put them there, and we'll be saving them and going through them as well. Well, I guess that's it for this week. Have a great weekend, and happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, and anybody who's mothering anything or anybody, actually. Okay, then. Take care. Bye, everybody.